Yeah, the good parts.
I'm taking it because my mom had such a high cholesterol here. It is,
You gotta make a decision.
so,
Right now, my decision is no. I can do certain things like, okay, I don't care, find out.
mine is like,
Oh,
I
my,
used to do that. So I kind of,
yeah, I see.
yeah.
Mine goes up and down, so. And then I heard that you need cholesterol in your brain, so why are they? Cholesterol level was like 250 or something, and then the lower.
I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay with this?
What?
Yeah.
Would you speak up?
Can you hear me back there, Warren?
Now that's better.
She knows you, Warren. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker to you. Many of you may know him, part of your class, Patrick Buchan. So I have a few words I'd like to say. Patrick grew up on his 6th-generation family farm outside of Avon, Illinois. He graduated from Bushnell Prairie City High School in 1970, also my alma mater, so I love that, and was accepted to Monmouth College, his soon-to-be new home. Patrick grew to know many great professors and wonderful mentor coaches who impacted his time at Monmouth. After graduation, he joined that group of faculty and staff and recruited athletes for the Monmouth College's admissions office for 2 years. He then went on to hold many titles in the agriculture industry, which he'll talk about, including Executive Director of the American Maine Anjou Association and the Texas Longhorn Cattle Breeders Association of America. Long titles. He was also the manager of both the Indiana and the Illinois State Fairs. Patrick now lives in Missouri with his wife Susan, who's with us today, and works on his beef cattle farm utilizing cutting-edge technology for genetic testing and evaluation. But this is the best part. If you ask him, he'll say he's just a dumb old farm boy who got lucky in life with a few choices and always loved his agricultural roots. So please join me in welcoming Patrick.
I'm serious. I don't know how many of you classmates remember that, but I often refer to myself as just a dumb old farm boy from Avon, Illinois. And I still
agreed with you.
and everybody agreed with me until I became a bartender at Penny's, and then everybody liked me. Couldn't figure that out. I never wondered why I got elected president of the M Club. I was bartending at Penny's. Anyway, when Abby called me at first, she goes, hey, you know, the committee kind of suggested you come and talk to your class, whatnot, and talk about your agricultural roots and some of your leadership roles in agriculture. And to be real honest with you, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I thought, you know what? And I can look right out here. I've already talked to some people that have accomplished a heck of a lot more than I have. I said, look, I know there's people in my class that are much more astute than I am, have accomplished much more than I am. The only thing I may have had that some of you may not have had, or you'd be up here, I had great people who knew how to write a great press release, and Monmouth College always got mentioned in it. And that's the difference between me being up here maybe now and you guys being out there. You know, the older I get, the more I realize it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I can go back to every advancement that I had in my career, and there was always a connection. There was always a friend, or I'd work for somebody, or whatever. Let's take the, in 1982, I was awarded the Young Alumnus Award. There was a connection. I had worked very hard, paid my way through college. Mom and Dad, you know, small farmhouse, 7 kids. I paid all my way through college and had to work through college to do so. I worked for a gentleman by the name of Glenn Rankin. Glenn Rankin was very instrumental at the college in admissions. He hired me, he hired our classmate Sue Margecco, and he hired our classmate Karen Oblos. for the admissions office, and I loved the admissions office. It was great. I got to travel throughout the state of Illinois, went in and met with high school seniors primarily, some juniors that wanted to come to Monmouth College. So I got to tell them all about my experience at Monmouth College. And it was a great, great, great job that agriculture was always calling me. Ag, I love ag. It just kept calling me back. And I knew I had to do something to get back in agriculture. Got real lucky again. There was a connection. But let me go back to Monmouth College. Let me ask everybody in here a question. I don't need that thing, do I? Everybody can hear me. If I were to ask, if you were interviewing for a job right now, and I were to ask you, folks, tell me why you're a strong leader. Could you do it? If you led people and were in leadership roles, as I assume most of you have been over the years and whatnot, what made you a strong leader? Could you come up with a pat answer? I didn't, and I lost a job. I was in front of a CEO, a COO, and a chief financial officer. And one of them, I don't remember which one says, Patrick, what makes you a strong leader? You know what the first thing I thought of? Monmouth College. And here's why. I was very fortunate. Played basketball. I came to Monmouth College, and I could have gone to Western for like $1,200. And I think when we started, it was what, $3,900. Borrowed every dime of it. I could have done that, but I chose Monmouth because I wanted to play basketball. Had a little success at Bushnell Prairie City High School. I wasn't recruited at Monmouth. You know, back then it was Jimmy Wassam and Bobby Wall, and they recruited 5 freshmen that year. 1970, our freshman year. I wasn't one of them, but I worked really hard. I learned a long time ago I was never going to be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I knew if I worked hard enough, I didn't have to be the dullest knife in the drawer. So I worked really hard, and by, it was January or so, Bobby Wall started me as guard for the team. But I came back to Monmouth, and when he asked me that question, it really stumped me, and I never got the job, so obviously I didn't do a very good job. But it stumped me for this reason. I couldn't answer it. What's different here? Couldn't answer it. And I went back to M Club. Why did some of you who were in M Club elect me president of M Club when we were our junior, senior year? I couldn't answer that. I go back to high school as a freshman president. I was senior president. I wanted to be the senior president because I got to give a speech at graduation and had a few things I wanted to say. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know why that happened. Here's what I'd like to ask Terry Glasgow. Everybody had Terry in a class. Did you have? You younger kids wouldn't have had it. Did you guys have Terry for any classes or basketball or any of those? Well, if you don't know Terry Glasgow, you know he's very mild, very mannered, never speaks out, never cusses. He came to me my junior year, he and Bobby Wall. I had Blossom freshman, sophomore year. See, freshmen, when we were freshmen, we weren't eligible for any sports or anything. Had to wait till sophomore year. He came to me. Why he came to me and Bobby Wall came to me, I don't know, but they said, hey, Buchan, you're not a very good basketball player. He was very subtle. He says, your vertical jump of 2 or 3 inches is phenomenal. He says, but you work awfully hard, you know the program. And he says, we want to start a program where we take an athlete and make him a coach and work with the freshman team. And of course I was elated and I said, yes. One of the best things I ever did in life, and I tell you why. It taught me at a very young age, that George here, I may have to kick his butt really hard to get him to do something where, Helen, I just look at and get done what I need to do. And that taught me that my senior year in college here at Monmouth, because I had one of my brother-in-laws was a freshman team, Terry Carlson. I don't know if you remember Terry or whatnot, but Terry was there, and Sanders, Roger was there and whatnot. So I had a handful, but it taught me some great lessons. Why Terry and Bobby sat down one day and said, hey, let's choose this Buchan guy to do it. I don't know. I couldn't answer the question. I didn't answer the question. I didn't get the job. I come up with something like, well, I can mesh well with people and whatever. And I go back and I think about the interviews I've done in agriculture. I know I probably got, I'll tell you a little quick story to solidify this. I know I lost some jobs because I was in agriculture, because I may have been too polished. not in language or intelligence or anything like that. Just, you might put on a suit or a coat or whatever, and some people in agriculture is like, well, who's that city slicker? To solidify that, my wife bought me a 72nd birthday present for a comedy club. So we go down to Springfield, Missouri. We go to a comedy club, and this comedian is really good. We listen to 2 or 3 preps, and then they bring in the main deal. And we're right in the front. Spotlight's right on us, and he's from my table to right here. Saturday night, I had on my good blue jeans. I had on boots. I had on a sport coat. And it was cold in there, so I had a scarf around my neck. And he walks in, and I saw him just look me up and down like that. Didn't say a word. Went on, did a little monologue. And he turns to me and he goes, by the way, where's your art gallery? She goes, oh my God, he's a farmer. And this guy took 2 steps back. And you know, the comedian's job is to figure out people, and then he can interact and make fun of them and whatnot. After the show, we met with him a little bit. He says, boy, you threw me being an old farm boy. And that's what I told Abby. I take pride in saying I'm just an old farm boy, because that's really what I am. I got lucky, got accepted in Monmouth College. A few good things happened. Let me tell you the second thing that happened to me, and I'll make the connection. In 1982, the Young Alumnus Award, I'd worked for Glenn Rankin, had to pay my way through college. And it wasn't anything that I'd done. You people sitting down here had done more than probably what I did. But I was a young executive director of a purebred cattle association, and the lady who wrote our magazine was a tremendous writer, and she wrote tremendous press releases, and Monmouth College was listed in every one of those press releases. I had nothing to do with earning the Young Alumnus Award, other than I had great writers writing good press releases for me. And thus, Glenn was on that deal. I worked hard on his farm to pay my way through college. He acknowledged that, and that's how I won the Young Alumnus Award in 1982. Everything, every job I've got, there's always been a connect. Indiana State Fair, 117 applicants, 35 years of age. Everybody was 50 plus, had some pretty good experiences. 19 board members, 4 or 5 appointed by the governor, but the governor still called the shots. 2 extensive, 1 phone interview to make the first cut, at the fairgrounds to make the second cut, and they brought me back for a 3rd cut interview. I never will forget, folks, this is my first lesson, don't mix politics and fairs. I never will forget the 3rd interview. This was June or July, about June or July, I figure, and I said to them, 19 board members, you know, mostly farmers and ranchers and stuff, so I connected well, but I said, hey, you got a governor's race coming up. How politically sensitive is this position to that governor's race? I never will forget it. Kid, you don't have a thing to worry about. Republicans held this office for 20 years. John Mutz, the lieutenant governor, Republican, running against some young kid nobody even knows about, Evan By. He says you don't have anything to worry about. Come November, Evan snuck in and bumped them all. He came to me in March after he got settled. Nice guy. He said, Patrick, it's nothing you've done or haven't done, but I got elected and I got a lot of favors to pay. Long story short, his chief of staff's father, Bill Moreau, got my job. So goes politics. Now, in fairness to Bill Moreau, I worked with him there in the trade show industry for about 7, 8, 9 years. He was a good administrator, ex-Army or ex-Marine, something like that, well-regimented, good manager of a fair, because there's a lot of moving parts, and you got to be on top of all those moving parts, or it'll swallow you up really fast. But anyway, that was my Indiana State Fair. Loved Indiana State Fair. They had a structure set up, and I'm going to tell you this structure, and then kind of hammer you a little bit on it. Everybody here from Illinois? Anybody here from, we're not from Illinois? Yeah, okay, most Illinois. Iowa did it right. Indiana did it right. Illinois did it exactly wrong when they set up monies and whatnot to fund their Illinois State Fair. Listen, I hate to say this, it hurts me to say this, but Illinois fairs across the country are a dying thing. They're a dying dinosaur. They have been now because of the shrinking agricultural community. We're less than 1% of the population feeding the world, basically. And You just gotta have, here's why Des Moines, Iowa has a tremendously successful fair, because the legislators set up that they get funded a little bit, and they set up foundations, and they got tremendous, they got all the Pella, Iowa, the big Vermeer dealer, they got all those people to donate towards the donation. They've got a great endowment fund, and they do a great fair. Indiana did the same thing. I was there and helped set it up. Here's what I found, why politics don't mix. The fair is a symbol and an entity that a governor can use at his will. And if he wants to appoint somebody who donated a lot of money, which has happened to your state fair often, the lady that I replaced, her dad was a huge donor to the Democratic Party. No fair experience, no ag experience. I'll let you judge whether it was a good fair or not. I don't. I have my own opinion, but it's pretty pointed. So I don't know. And I would have never taken the Illinois fair job, very honestly. After the fair, let me back up. After the fair, I got to know two people from the Illinois State Fair very, very well. We talk weekly. Your Director of Agriculture, Philip Nelson, tremendous individual. I love that man. He had my back everywhere. And when they fired him, I walked out the door. Walked out the door with him. I'll get back to it. Another one was, he was my quasi-president, a gentleman by the name of Alan Entwistle from that area. He and I spent a lot of nights together. I was down there, they had a fair manager's house, a Sears house, and I wasn't quite what we were accustomed to living in, but I said, you know what, I want to be right and hard right thing. So I lived in the manager's house. Alan would come out, and we'd be out, counting tie-out cattle stands, or setting up pins, or doing something, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Great individual. So the greatest aspect of my managing the Illinois State Fair, because a lot of it was really bad, was I got to know these two gentlemen. We talk weekly. They become very, very dear friends. Philip ran Illinois Farm Bureau for 10 years. Great guy, very supportive, but they always had my back. I was a fighter. Folks, I hate to say this, and I never want to offend anybody. I knew I was in trouble at the Illinois State Fair the first or second day I was there. Again, I don't want to offend anybody. 3 different union members showed up to hang my half a dozen posters and my plaques and stuff in my room. 3 different union members, when I could have done it myself. Oh, no, you can't. We got to do it. I was fearful that day from henceforth, because I'm thinking, boy, in a customer service business, you just got to have people that, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, what can I do to help you? And sometimes I don't get that. I had a union guy turn around and walk away because his shift was ending or whatever, and we left a customer standing there without the job done. I went ballistic, and I should know, but I just don't tolerate that very well at all. So anyway, I love your Illinois State Fair. I get sick at my stomach when I hear things about the Illinois State Fair. Illinois is one of the most productive states in our world. We should have, as Indiana does and Iowa has, they should be able to have a tremendous state fair. Here's why we don't. The politics. You ask anyone in agriculture who maybe show cattle, sheep, hogs, goats, whatever, and they'll tell you, Philip Nelson and I accomplished more in 6 months than the previous administration for agriculture than the other administrations did for a decade. And here's what's surprising. We're not smart. We're not dumb, but we're not smart. We just did our job. And we were very successful in doing it. So it showed me that, you know what, there are some things that you can do, even when the politics are kind of bad. You're Speaker of the House for years and years and years. We had a funding deal on his desk that sat there my entire tenure at the Illinois State Fair to start a foundation. There were big corporations that wanted to help us and give us money. He wouldn't release it because it wasn't his deal. So we just, it was one fight after, it seemed like one fight after another. I love the fair business. I always have. Started going to fairs, at 8, 9, 10 years of age. Illinois State Fair every year that we did. Had Champion Steer in 1972 at the Illinois State Fair. So I love the fair business, and I love the fact that it still can be a shining beacon for agriculture. And trust me, we're getting so small and so few people in agriculture. We need everything we can possibly muster for agriculture. But again, I go back to that question. What made it different or whatever? I don't have the answer for that. you know, I could come up with a list of this and that, as I'm sure all you guys have in your interviews and whatnot when you went through your life and your career. That's embarrassing, isn't it, George? Is it important? Go ahead and take it. You won't interrupt me a bit.
I don't have to do it right now.
So the most important thing I took away from Indiana State Fair is that, you know, you always got to be aware of politics, because they still rule the roost. Now, in Illinois, here's something else I learned at Illinois too. Governor's position is a lot of moving parts, and I get that. But I walked out of the Sears house at the Illinois State Fair, met the governor. I said, Governor, would you like to see your Sears house? It's got a great history. No, I don't have that. You know, Rounders Paul, I don't know if you ever met him, about 6'5". So I'm always looking up at him like this. So we walked down through the Midway and we're looking at stuff. And I said, Governor, I said, I'm really disappointed. Your people cost me about $25–30 million this week. He stopped dead in his track. You know, he's down there looking at me like whatever. He says, what are you talking about? And I said, well, myself and Alan Entwistle and Philip Nelson, we had met with a very prominent lady, fertilizer business, multi-billionaire. And I said, we had lined up $25 or $30 million to just start the project of, I don't know if you're familiar with the State Fair, but there's a lot of old horse farms down there that are falling in. Should have been torn down years and years and years ago. We had mapped it out and figured it out. I had a little experience working with expos, because I did expos for 27 years, working in anywhere from 100,000 to 400,000 square foot, setting in booths and whatnot. I said, we need a multi-purpose building. We had it all planned. We didn't have the money from her. I don't want to mislead you, but we had her committed to it. We were going to make her the Grand Marshal of the Illinois State Fair Parade. One of Rauner's underlings, who was our advisor to the governor, went out and chose which was wonderful, a naval officer who was going to be the commander of a ship, they think, and the ship wasn't commissioned yet, but he chose him to be the commander-in-chief, or the parade honorary. Flew we were going to make her the Grand Marshal and everything. And he looked at me and he says, who made that decision? And I said, Governor, you tell me. And I knew who did. He didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue. And I understand, you can't do everything in a position like that. I've worked with 2 governors now, and it's all the same. It's not the governors. It's those underlings that say and have a title and says, hey, I work in the governor's office. Another example, this one really pees me off and teased me terribly, and it's just flat wrong. Every 4-H kid, every FFA kid, their parents, their aunts and uncles, their brothers or siblings, to walk in that fairground, they have to have a pass. You have to have a pass in and out. I get a call from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We want 2,500 free passes. Okay, I called Philip Nelson. I said, Philip, do we always do this? He said, yeah. He says, kind of tradition. What do they want? They want 2,500. That's 5,000 free passes. Does no one give any value to the Illinois State Fair, even the politicians? So we print up 2,500. We give 2,500 to the Republicans, 2,500 to the Democrats. They have their day at the fair. They bring in people. Here's how they get a lot of people in. They go to Chicago. This is what Rauner did. Not Rauner. His people did. They go to Chicago. They find literally indigents on the street. They say, hey, you want a free meal and a day at the fair? They load 2 or 3 buses up, so they've got 80 or 90, 100 people, and I have to give them a free pass to the fair. I get a call from Rauner's office in Chicago. We need 500 more free passes. Bill, I gave you 2,500 to give the Dems. If I give you 500 more, by law, I've got to give them 500 more. Not by law, just by tradition. I said, I'm not going to do it. If the fair doesn't have any value, I'm not going to do it. Oh, he says, you're going to very disappoint the governor. And I said, you know what? I work at the pleasure of the governor. Have him call me. That always shocks it. They hang right up right then because they never would. It wasn't 7 minutes. Yes, Mr. Director Nelson. Yes, sir, I will. Had to put up 1,000 more tickets and give to the 2 parties. And yet every 4-H kid's got to pay their way to go to the Illinois State Fair. Tell me that's right. Can't be. Just can't be. Again, get politics out of the fair business and you'll do quite well. I love the fair business. I wish I was still there. I thought I'd still be in Indiana. Politics got me there. Here it was politics, but it wasn't the governor. It was those underlings that I had to fight them and everything. We're down at the, I also managed the DuQuoin State Fair. We're down at the DuQuoin State Fair. And I go up to the governor. We're getting ready to be introduced, he and I, at the rodeo that night. I said, Governor, would you like to ride a horse into the arena to be introduced? Yeah, I said, that'd be a lot of fun. 2 or 3 again, these little underlings, I call them, rushed out. No, Governor, you can't do that. You violate this and this and this and this and that and whatever. So I get a horse, I go out and I introduce myself and get introduced, and I give, introduce the governor, and he says a few words, just little things like that, though. Just, we could do so much for agriculture. I got so much. When you're in a position like that, you learn all the dirty secrets. I go to the DuQuoin State Fair. Here's a beautiful convention facility. Not large, 85,000 square feet, brand new, beautiful. And I'm like, my God, I'm from the exposition business. What is this? Well, one of your governors got in a little trouble with DuQuoin one time, so that was his payoff to keep it quiet. And they've got a beautiful facility sitting down there not being used at all. It's a shame. It's just a shame. Anyway, hey, if anybody got any questions about the fair business, I want to go on to another subject about agriculture and leadership. So again, guys, I'm humbled that you asked me to be up here and do whatever. If you've got any questions about that, I didn't do anything special. I just got lucky. I made a few right decisions, made a heck of a lot wrong decisions. The best decision I ever made in my life will be 45 years ago, this October 13th. And that was when I married this young lady over here. So that was the best decision of my life. We got some beautiful kids and whatnot. I think she's got some pictures here. But I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear a few things. Long story short, son-in-law is a commander in the Navy, went to the Naval Academy. He was, I don't know if you know it, but there's a military aid office in the White House, in the East Wing. One from each branch. They're the ones that do all the planning. Secret Service wasn't developed until after McKinley was shot, and it's for transport only. So the military office from each branch does all this. Well, he was in there for 1.5 years under Trump, and 1.5 years under Biden. He was ready for a elevation in his promotion. Thank you, dear. Well, his commanding officer gives the motion. It was the president. So we spent about 3 hours in the Roosevelt Room, the Oval Office, and the Rose Garden. Tremendous experience. You will never find or be around a more humble, respectful, self-effacing gentleman than Joe Biden. Now, whether he ought to be president or not is another issue. Won't go there. But very, very nice gentleman. And I told somebody, there's another lady there with me. She was very conservative. I have a tendency to be very conservative. She goes, you know what? I'm going to walk out of that thing. I know I'm not going to like him. She walks out of there like, damn, he's such a nice guy. And he really is. Where's the picture with my grandson? That's my family. He's a commander now in the Navy. We just went out. Anybody here military? Long time ago, military. What's the branch?
Army.
Yeah, Army. You've probably been through a command of change of command. Folks, put it on your bucket list. If you've never been through a command of change, I don't care what branch it is. We went to the military command of change for this young man. He took over HSC-14, largest helicopter unit in the Navy, which stands for Helicopter Combat HSC, Helicopter Sea Combat Unit. And anyway, we got to go to the command change and the passing of Old Glory. Anybody ever seen the passing of Old Glory, where they salute the flag and pass it down through the various stages that the military went through? Oh my gosh, folks! Military, the naval orchestra's playing in the background, and they read this: "I am Old Glory. I've been stepped on. I've been burned. I've been yanked." They go through this whole thing. It's a fabulous ordeal. So if you ever get a chance to go. Anyway, we were in the White House. Here it is, right here. I want to get emotional about it. I got to tell you. You know, Biden's a stutterer. Our grandson is the stutterer. I think they prompted Biden beforehand because he knew. Because when you went up to meet Liam, it was just special. Where's the picture? Is there another picture of Liam? Long story short, Biden knew he was a stutterer. So he gave him some presidential handcuffs. Then, afterwards, Liam finally got enough nerve to go up and address the president and thank him and do whatever. And he says, you know what, Liam, come here, I want to show you something. You know, I just did a speech at the UN, which he had just done. This was October 2 years ago. He just did a speech. He just, and you know, and there's AIDS running around. If you've ever been around, AIDS runs out. The speech is back in Biden's hand in 2 minutes. He says, here, I'm going to give this to you. I want to show you how I do a speech. And he had some words circled because I had problems with them. He got some words with lines over them because he says, I know I got to draw this out or I'm going to stutter. He said, Liam, I want you to have that. How can you not like a guy like that? Just breaks my heart when I realize it. Anyway, my son-in-law's tight-lipped. No lip will sink a ship. I asked him about the difference between Trump and Biden, and he won't say much. All I heard him say one time, and I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. He wasn't very lucky. He was on duty. See, military aid, one of the things they do is they carry the nuclear code, so they can never be more than 3 minutes away from the president. So when Trump went to the hospital, he was on duty. Had to sleep on a cot in a room next to Trump in the hospital when he was there. Trump was really sick. And he saw him in some compromising positions and so forth and so on. And all he would say is, I heard him tell a friend, Trump's got a very good tailor. That's all he would say about his physique or whatever. But anyway, it's been a tremendous experience. And he was also on duty, wasn't he? When here's what I found interesting. He was on duty when the White House got locked down and all that. He was about 3.5 hours with Melania and Barron, and Melania's folks lived in the White House, and her folks. He said it was the most common family gathering you'd ever expect, which I kind of took me back because I wasn't expecting that. So anyway, he's afforded us some wonderful opportunities. One was obviously being in the White House. Now what I want to do is switch on, because most of you guys, how many took on a second life after retirement? Good. What are you doing?
I was in IT.
Beautiful. And now what are you doing?
Well, no, I went from the Army and then to IT.
Wonderful. Good for you. You raised your hand.
I didn't want you to see me raise my hand. I've done volunteer things, leadership in the retirement community where we live. They called it moderator. Anyway, it was about 3/4, 2/3, 3/4 time job for a year being moderator. I flunked retirement a couple times.
Yeah. Good for you. I didn't even try to flunk it. I knew I would. Kind of like a class. I don't know about you guys. I want to hear some of your stories about your classes. But senior year, had more than enough credits and everything, graduated, but I needed one requirement: accounting. 8 o'clock in the morning. I want to say Johnson. I don't remember his name. He was a CPA here in town. I don't know if anybody else had that accounting class. 8 o'clock in the morning. So I went to him and said, look, I've got enough credits to graduate. All I need is this credit. What do I have to do just to pass? These get degrees in this case. He said, well, show up every morning at 8 o'clock and I'll make sure you pass. Well, that lasted about 2 or 3 weeks. And then, I was bartending. And anyway, I had to study my fanny off to get a C or a D in there. And that's how I graduated. But I didn't know it till about Mom called. Well, we got a party planned and everything. Okay, you might want to hold off just a little bit. I think I'm okay, but you never know. The reason I asked that, retired at about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and one of the reasons we did, folks, is that Susan and I wanted to buy either a quarter or a half carcass of prime beef. Couldn't do it. Couldn't find it anywhere. You can buy steaks, you can buy roast, you can buy hamburger and everything. So when we retired, we got in a car and we decided after the fair. That's another thing too. Some of those people could be pretty nasty. They wrote a bunch of stuff that never took place. That was one of the biggest disappointments at the Indiana Fair. The gentleman who wrote for us, I called him one time. Ernie was his name. I said, Ernie, you were in that meeting. I was in that meeting. That isn't what I heard at all. Well, that's the way I interpret it. Put it in print. It's, it's the media, huh? Anyway, we said, look, there's an opportunity to raise prime beef, but how do you do it? We know for a fact of all the cattle harvested in this country, only 2.3 to 2.5% of those cattle have a prime carcass. And I said, there's a great opportunity. The reason I'm saying this is everybody should stay as active as they can. So I got into DNA. We buy cattle, we raise cattle, we draw DNA out of them, and then if it's the right DNA, we feed the cattle. And in 2020, when I don't know if you guys got caught in any of this, we had 7, 8, 10 calves on feed, couldn't find a processing plant, everything was booked up a year or so. Dumb luck again, the little processing plant in Humansville, 90-year-old gentleman, or soon to be, and his son, been there 48 years, they were done, they were ready to move on, and just got luck, picked up the phone, they liked us, we liked them, we went in and met, and were able to strike a deal. So we bought this little processing plant, and now we don't have to worry about getting our calves in and harvested. I get reminded often from my bride over here, kind of an expensive way to get your calves harvested, but it's worked out pretty well. Anyway, folks, what we have learned that there is a way to either buy cattle or raise cattle, do a DNA on them, and identify markers in that DNA. We work with a company, we're not smart enough to do it, work with a company called Igenity, which is a part of the Neogen Corporation, did 4 million DNAs last year on all species. So they're pretty astute, they worked with us, and 8 years, we finally got our first, if we find one that we knew was prime, and if they were quality, they had to go into the breeding herd. So we haven't had many to sell. But anyway, we start raising cattle, and you want to show a picture? We're at a point now where if I can get a DNA on a calf, I can tell you how that calf will grade. And I've got a lot of deer cattle people that say, oh, you're full of SHIT and you're chasing pixie dust and so forth. And I said, well, show me better pixie dust and we will do it. I've loved agriculture my whole life, loved the cattle business. Went to work for the Shorthorn Association, became executive director of Maine on Jew, and then the Texas Longhorn. Texas Longhorn cattle breeder was a very interesting, very, very informative aspect of my career. Because, at Shorthorn you had primarily farmers and ranchers on the board of directors. Maine on Jew, you had farmers and ranchers on the board of directors. Longhorn, I had people like Red McCombs. Now, if you don't know that name, he owned the San Antonio Spurs, bought the Minnesota Vikings, multi-billionaire, 3,900 car dealerships or something like that around the country. Very powerful. Not a bully, but you knew, if he didn't like something, you knew about it. So I had to learn how to handle those people. And then right next to him is a little Longhorn breeder that, doesn't hardly have a window or a glass to throw it out, So it really taught me a good lesson or two working with some of those billionaires. Least enjoyable aspect of the fair business, entertainment. I hated it. We'd have people come in, I don't know if you remember this, but remember when red dye, whatever it was, kind of hit the deal and it wasn't supposed to be bad for everything. One of the groups came in and requested a bowl. They're $85,000, $90,000 guarantee, plus. They wanted an M&M bowl. This day we had to pick all the red ones out. Just ridiculous stuff. Willie Nelson landed at the Indiana State Fair one time. George Jones was supposed to show up, got drunk, didn't show up, so Willie filled in for him. And Willie this was when he was going through the IRS problems and all of this and everything, and he quit smoking pot. Well, I met him at the bus, and I about got blown over with pot that followed the bus out the bus store and whatnot. If you're lucky and fortunate and hit it big, you might make money on 1 out of 6 or 7, 8 acts. Here's the hard fact. I can make money easier on a $1 million act than I can an act that's $100,000. They'll sell out. That $100,000 act, you got to hustle to get them sell tickets there. Of all the entertainers, think back all you've probably seen at state fairs and what around the country. Who do you think makes the most money? Famous father, great entertainer. Hank Williams Jr. makes more money at state fairs than any other entertainer. Do you know why? He sells a lot of beer. And we make a lot of money on selling beer. Besides that, he's a tremendous artist. We go up to meet him, and there some when you get to meet these people, some of them are very gracious and whatnot, and he was. How you doing, boss? I'm just here to do what you want me to do. That's Hank Williams Jr. And other guys, you can't get them to. Winona Judd, don't want to say anything bad, but the dad. Here's a good contrast. We brought Marie Osmond. One of our largest assets was a women's expo in Dallas, Texas, the Visions Women's Expo, Dallas Visions Women's Expo. And we'd bring in big time entertainment. Brought in Marie Osmond. $30,000 for an hour presentation. When I write out those checks, I get real sick at my stomach. Not once with her. She was phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to hear Marie Osmond, she didn't sing, she just talked. Talked about her life, talked about postpartum depression, talked about the people, the queens and the kings and the people she met in her life as she grew up. Phenomenal. Love it. The next year we brought in Winona Judd. Oh, it wasn't bad, 20 grand. I'm still sick, I had to write out a check. She was terrible. She's just a kook. I'm sorry she's dead, but just a kook. So you gotta be, entertainment was the least enjoyable. We never made money. It always cost us money in the fair. We wrote it off because, well, we get a commission off the Cokes and the hot dogs and everything and the popcorn and everything sold from the vendors at the fair. So it's worthwhile bringing in, 15, 16,000 people, even though we don't make money on Willie Nelson's. Never made money on Willie Nelson's show. He's got an 85, and this is 30 years ago, had an 85,000 guarantee, plus. And it's those plus stuff that just eat you alive. So anyway, any questions? I'm doing all the talking, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to hear from you guys. Tell me what you've been doing and how you're doing it. Grandchildren, can I show our grandchildren? There's one of them. There's our, this was at the command change. Our oldest daughter and her husband and two daughters and a son. I wasn't military, my brothers weren't military, that's all of us did. We went through the lottery system. And I don't know what your numbers were, mine was like 323 or something like that, so it didn't even get close. Brother Mike had 167, this would have been in 68, and they got up to like 163 or 164 drafted that year, so it was pretty close. Next one if we can, just real quick.
Yeah, I think we're going back to.
Oh yeah, that's okay, that's back at the White House, that's a grandchild, that's okay. Anyway, when we had our first three grandchildren, I'm telling you a story because I kind of feel bad. When we had our first three grandchildren, I was still working, making a living and hustling and trying to do all I could do. And then our youngest was 34, 35. Her and her husband, he's a Delta mechanic, they weren't going to have children. Well, that changed. So we got the new little one here, and it's been quite a blessing. And I work harder today than I ever did during business because I'm carrying feed buckets and we're moving cattle around and we're digging post holes and doing all the things you have to do on a farm. But I get this technology, I get to Skype with her 2 or 3 times a day. So she's always calling for Papa, and usually ask for Papa first and then Gamal. But anyway, enough of me. Any questions or anything that I can tell you? I was really humbled. Again, guys, I feel there's people out here done a hell of a lot more than I have, truly. I've just been very fortunate to be in some right positions at the right time and whatnot. Most of it, some of it in high school, most of it started right here. And the responsibilities I learned. Here's something I wish I did. Did anybody take physics from Dr. Johnson? You know what? Good for you guys. If I could get my girls and my wife to take a physics class, I think they'd understand motion and all. I never worked harder for a C in my life. But a wonderful class. If I were a college professor, I'd make everybody take a philosophy class, which we did. That was it. Well, not really. I don't know if you remember that. You'd say it's black and white, black. Well, not really. And then he'd come up with all this other stuff.
The chair is not there.
What?
The chair is not there.
The chair,
I don't care what he said.
that's right. You took it then. Beautiful. What else? Anybody else from the older class? I spent a lot of time on 74. 69.
Oh,
64.
64, I'm sorry, what am I thinking? Anybody got anything? Classmates?
You want the mic for me?
No.
Oh, this will be good. Back up, Susan.
So what are the characteristics of a good leader?
You know what? Great point. I don't know.
Oh, he doesn't know.
You're supposed to have an answer. Come on.
I don't know.
What have we paid you for?
I know exactly. Number one, here's what I tried to do, especially at the Illinois State Fair. Every decision, I told my staff this, every decision you make, is it good for the State Fair? Is it good for Illinois agriculture? And would our boss, Nelson, be proud of what we do? And I think, Stan, I love what I do. I've carried it on my sleeve. If I'm disappointed, you'll know it. If I'm elated, you'll know it. People didn't have to guess where I was coming from. I was always very direct. I was always very sincere. And I didn't pull any punches. I'm not smart enough to play those political games, I've decided. Whether that made me a good leader or not, I don't know. You guys, some of you guys in here elected me president of M Club. You tell me why you did it. And I hope it wasn't because I was a bartender at Penny's, but maybe, maybe it was. You never know. But I know, good question. You've led people. What makes you a strong leader?
Well, you asked that question, I'm going, damn, what was it? I mean, yeah, you gotta be smart to a degree.
Well, I failed in
You
that.
gotta communicate.
A-type personality. I'm an A-type personality. You know, I would divorce her in a heartbeat if she squeezes my toothpaste in the middle. Does that make you a good leader?
Oh, I'd divorce her.
You see there, I'm not the only one, Susan. I agree.
Cindy made him who he is, don't we?
Well, you know, yes, the science and stuff is her category. I let her read it and analyze it, and then she tells me what we need to do and why we need to do it, and I just follow directions. We got 15 minutes, we can go anytime. How about you, young lady? You're not a Monmouth College grad, you're an Iowa State grad, and yet you come back to Monmouth. Are you an Iowa State?
We've paid Iowa State a fair amount of money, but I didn't attend it.
My parents said the same.
I'm sure they would. You like Monmouth?
I love Mom.
What's your enrollment now?
I think we were just under 700 this year, right?
Were you
Tina?
really?
That's right.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody might know. When I was there about 700, 750 when we were there. And then you got up to 11 or 1200 for a while, didn't the college?
Yep.
And now you fall back like a lot of colleges. Has Monmouth College caught the same flack that a lot of the Ivy Leagues, like, are you really worth it?
Sure, yeah, people do wonder about, is a liberal arts education worth it? And when I'm talking to donors, I definitely say it is, because we offer communication, building communication skills, critical thinking, team building. Those are all things that make you worthwhile, I believe, in the workforce. And you asked what makes a good leader. I think empathy. When you're working with individuals, you have to understand everything that they're going through and be empathetic to their growth and development, but that's just
You
kind
bet.
of
No,
what
that's really
I've
good.
seen.
Who here has had to fire someone? Did you enjoy it?
Well, it was necessary.
Did what?
It was necessary.
It was necessary. Did you enjoy it, even if it was necessary?
It was good for the organization, good for the co-workers. I mean,
Yeah,
it was the right thing to do.
it was the right thing to do. There you go. How about you? Same thing?
I've been in positions where I had to let quite a few people go.
Yeah.
Kind of turnaround organization kind of thing.
Yes,
That's probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
I'll bet.
The one guy I was referring to
Yes.
should have gone a long time
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah, I was the same way.
And that was on me too.
I've regretted every one but one, and that one I still am glad I fired her.
Going back, the hardest decision I ever made,
Yes,
we had budget cuts,
yes.
and I had to let good people,
Yep.
they were doing their job, and good people go. But you had to decide what was the
What was best for the
organization needed.
organization, you bet, and that's not always easy. No, I
That was the
agree.
one I struggled hardest with.
Yeah. Were those people, the people you fired, were they ones you hired as well? No. See, was that easier? Because everyone I fired, I hired. Everyone. There was only 2 people I had to fire. One I enjoyed, the other one I didn't, because I hired him. I thought he could make it. He had some of the tools, but he just never put forth the effort. Here's what I've learned in hiring. I bet you guys have too. I'll teach a kid anything. I can't teach him a work ethic. I hire a work ethic and will teach him whatever you can do. And boy, you can tell real quick whether they got the right work, I think, especially in agriculture, some things we do. I can tell real quick whether they got the right attitude. And I think that's probably more important than anything you could look for.
Matt, I would look for what you just described as work ethic as much as you could document it. The main thing was team chemistry.
Yeah.
Would I like to work with this person? And would my team like to work with this
Yeah.
person?
And you know what,
And
that's
then I
great.
send them to the person who does the hiring.
You think?
With the final decision.
That's where I made my mistake. I knew when I hired this lady, I didn't want to work with her, but I didn't have to. She was running a publication for me. I had, I oversaw everything, but it was her deal. And that, he just hit the nail on the head. I should have followed my gut. That's something else that I've had a hard time doing over the years too. I've learned to follow it more, but if I'd have followed my gut from the first, I'd have never hired her, because it wasn't somebody I wanted to work with. That's a great point. Very great point. Yes, sir.
One thing you will find though, if I can do a 180 on that,
Yes, sir.
if your organization is good, you can hire damn near anybody.
Good point.
Because they come in and they want to be a part of that.
Yep.
And I found that when I was good, and my organization was good, everything was real smooth. When things weren't going quite so well, I wasn't doing too good a job.
Yeah. I agree. Some staff members at the Illinois State Fair, every year a TV station comes in, we do a 30-minute commercial in the Illinois State Fair. And historically, whoever was the fair manager, they did it. And I said, look, I'd only been there 3 or 4 or 5 months. I said, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna put every head of every department with entry, entertainment, parking, I'm gonna put them on TV and let them tell what they do and why they do it, and here's how you can come to the state fair. I had 2 or 3 of them just refused. They just wouldn't do it. And I said to them, well, you're pushing us out of our comfort zone. Damn, isn't that my job as manager, to push you out of your comfort zone? And some people, I never did get one lady, and she knows the entry department better than anybody in the world, and yet I couldn't get her to go in front of that camera. Not to save my soul. Not to save my soul. Go back to Monmouth College. Biggest takeaway, biggest regret. I'll start. Biggest regret, I didn't work harder at academics. I partied way too much, and I admit it. After college, went and got my auctioneer's license, and I done some auctions around the country. In fact, I did the Dallas Ducks Unlimited auction one year. We put together about 130,000. It held the record for about a week until Houston did theirs, and they beat us, of course. But I love doing the auctions, whatnot. I still do a few around the country for just fundraisers and whatnot. I don't charge. I just do it for fun, and that's always fun to get around and do that kind of stuff. So, biggest regret, ladies. Haven't heard from you. Maybe no regrets. I got to tell you a little secret though. If you think about a big regret. When she called, I told you I didn't want to do it because I didn't know what I could say about the Illinois State Fair that wasn't going to upset somebody, or unions or whatever. I had a real knockdown, drag out with we have terrible electrical problems on the Illinois State Fair. And the lead electrician, union gentleman, and he'd been there for 25 or 30 years. And we had the National Junior Heifer Show for Main on June and Kianina at the fairgrounds. That's a big deal, big money, economic impact for Springfield, millions of dollars, a hotel and move, everything. We were having terrible electrical problems, and I was on a golf cart trying to monitor thing, and the electrician showed up. He's about 6'4". I'd heard some stories here and there, and I don't like to go by stories, but whatever. And I said to him, what are we going to do to solve this problem? I've got 4-H kids here that are not getting their equipment going and this and that and everything. We got to solve this problem. And he looked down and he said, he says, you're never going to satisfy those old farmers. And at the time I was driving off in the golf cart, I turned that thing around so fast I thought I was going to turn off. I jumped off. This is a big, tall guy. I was madder than happy. And I said, look, you son of a biscuit. The director of agriculture is an old farmer. I'm a 5th generation old farmer. And the director of natural resources on our fairgrounds is an old farmer. You better figure it out. You've been here 30 years. You better figure it out. Drove off. I called Nelson. Anybody here work with private equity? One of the things I learned working with private equity is they better be the first to know any problem or you're done. So if there's ever a downturn in economic or whatever in your deal when you're working with private equity, let them know before anybody else or you're done. That's just, didn't learn it the hard way, it never happened, but I was told that. I called Philip, I told him the story. Again, it wasn't 10 minutes. 10 minutes after I hung up, he called me back. Well, he said, I just heard from the head of the union, and we can't get rid of it. And I said, that's fine. And what do we do? How do we correct this? You don't. We didn't. I never had a way to correct the gentleman that was in charge of the electrical units at the Illinois State Fair, which was a tremendous problem. I'd even heard of I'm going to share a secret now. They had a cocaine problem in the electric department before I ever got there, I was told. Don't know for a fact. And yet, there's nothing I can do to fix this problem. Nothing. Damn, folks, that puts me in a position that I don't ever want to be in, you know, and yet I was. Anything else? We're close enough now to cocktail hour, I think, aren't we?
I'd like to dispute one of your comments.
Please.
That didn't study hard enough. I think partying is part of the career
The passage
of life growing up. I mean, you meet more different people at those various events.
It helps if you remember them.
Who the hell are you?
Bartend. Did anybody else bartend during college?
Well, not college, after college.
After college you did, yeah. To your point, working at Penny's was a plethora of experience.
Have you seen Butch? I mean, who here doesn't know Butch?
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, oh gosh, I don't even want to go there. I made more money one night at Penny's than I ever made in college. I apologize to anyone who was in there that night because I had the streak to make the money. And they put a sack on my head. I had $343. Now let me tell you something, that was a lot of money back in 1973, 74. But I had to run from the front of Penny's all the way to the back, touch the back wall, come back, and I got paid.
Can I just add that I probably never would have married you if I had gone to Monmouth College?
True story, she's gonna deny it. In Kansas City, she was just finishing up her undergrad at KU. She was enrolled at KU Med Center to get her master's in speech pathology. She had a pledge daughter that was a KU pom-pom girl, beautiful lady. She and her were sitting at the end of the bar when I walked in a bar one night called the Happy Buzzard. The reason I went there, George Brett, remember that name?
Mm-hmm.
George Brett attended that bar frequently back in the day. I walked by the bar, I was going around to sit around by her friend, and she pinched me.
Oh, that's not true.
That
is not
said, hey
true.
cowboy, what are you doing the rest of your life?
Not
Been
true.
45 years, this
Might
I was
not be
really kind of
46.
interested in her pledge daughter. I'm sorry.
Might not be 46.
Well, that's what I'm
That's right, that's
saying.
right.
May never be, exactly. Who else? I see couples in here, you got more than 45 years.
46 for us next weekend.
Good for you, congratulations.
Mary,
Almost
what about you?
49.
58 in next, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Look, he's asking how many. Are you asking how many, or is you like?
No, I was gonna say we were close, we're at 55.
Are you
Wow.
really? That's wonderful.
So nice.
Congratulations.
I think it's really up there, I was gonna say.
You know what? I don't know, this one comedian was very upset one day, and he says, are you folks aware, 50% of all marriages work?
You blew it.
I'm like,
wrong, all marriages work.
Uh-huh.
there you go. No, congratulations to all you guys. I know, I say this very frequently to young married. It might be the hardest work you'll do, but it'll be the most satisfying work you ever do in your life, just get married. Folks, again, I was humbled. Again, I didn't have any more than what George here has, or Vicky, or whatever. I just was fortunate enough to have a young Bushnell girl who knew the name, and I think that's how probably why I got selected. But here's what the best part about the whole thing was. For the last 3 weeks, every time I think about Monmouth College, I get a smile on my face, you know? And it's brought back so many memories and whatnot of what we did and how we did it. Not all good. I got called in. Anybody get called in by Bill Reichow? No, I got called in by Bill Reichow one time. I don't want to tell you why, but it wasn't very good. And Greg Durback, does that name ring a bell? Fell off the ladder. Shouldn't have been off the ladder.
Just stop.
I stopped. Anyway, Bill called me in. I didn't know Bill. Didn't have Bill. I don't think he taught any classes, and I wasn't a wrestler or a football player. But I was, as president of M Club, Bill was the advisor, so I got to know Bill really well. I probably wouldn't have got the Monmouth job, even though I knew Glenn really well, if it hadn't been for Bill and Terry. They really needed some help in sports. I don't know if you guys remember back then, Bill was under a lot of pressure. You know, he was kicking everybody's fanny, and even our own administration, Dr. DeBeau-Free. I walked out of work one time on DeBeau-Free because of the way they treated Bill one time.
Good for you.
Good.
I did it in high school too. My best friend busted a kid in the mouth that needed it terrible, and I organized, maybe we're back to leadership, I organized a walkout. Now, the gentleman principal, remember Claudia Lawson? Does that name ring a bell? She was 2 years ahead of us. Her dad was principal there at Bushnell Prairie City High School. Went over to a friend's house. Nobody had the guts to call, so I called. And I say, look, everybody in the school wanted to bust that kid in the mouth. Tom was the first one to do it, and there'll be a lot more. He's just a pain in it. He says, Patrick, you get back to school right now. And I said, Mr. Lawson, not going to do it until Tom gets to come back. And we held our ground. I was shaking and scared to death. We get home that night. Mr. Lawson, the principal, was a bridge player with my father. My real worry was getting home that night. He was John Lawson and Dad were partners at Duplicate Bridge. Mother had already heard about it. So I walk in. Dad's out in the barn. You go tell your father what you did today. And I'm like, oh, son of a gun. And Dad was quiet, but he was forceful if he needed to be. And I went out in the barn. Dad was milking a cow. And I told him the story, and I told him the whole thing. And I was ready for the hammer just to fall. All he said to me was, huh, had John over a barrel, didn't you? That's all he said to me. So I was very fortunate. Anything else? What else can we talk about? Anybody else got biggest regrets? I told you what my biggest was. I think Terry Glasgow, for whatever reason, said, hey, come and work with these freshman players. It's a tremendous experience for me, and I got to stay connected to basketball. Biggest regret, probably not working a little harder, but your point, there's so much to life than A, B's, and C's. You know what? So much to life. Anything else? Anybody else? Again, guys, I'm humbled. Thank you very much for hanging around. Anything else? We're ready for cocktails, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we have like right around an hour before cocktails start, but if anyone needs rides back over to Bowers to change or anything like that, we'll get some golf carts for you.
It's like the former bartender would know better than